Hi, I'm Oscar,
And I'm Charlotte.
and together we're the F1 couple. So, what we're going to be doing today is doing a bit of a, sort of race wrap up, I guess.
I don't
That
think you can
wasn't,
call it that.
yeah, the not race wrap up for the Belgian Grand Prix. And I mean, usually we sort of go through our winners and losers and honourable mentions, but it's a bit more difficult to do that this time as there wasn't really a proper race to evaluate. We'll maybe cover them a little bit later, but I think to start, we'll just have to talk a bit about the mess that was the Belgian Grand Prix. So the Grand Prix that was but wasn't. Do you want to start on this one?
I think. So you're asking me what basically I think about the way that they dealt with the rain, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so in some ways, I actually agree with them in the way that they
Them
handled
being like the FIA. Yeah.
because I appreciate that fans want to see a race, but safety has to always come first. So I think they were right not to run the full race. I think as well, I know you disagree with me on this, but I think that they need to honour what happened in qualifying in some way, shape, or form because qualifying is there for a reason, right? I appreciate there has already been some sort of achievement that weekend, and I think they kind of made the right decision. I do think there needs to be a tweak in the rules about what is a race and what isn't, because to me that isn't a race.
Yeah.
But I do think my personal opinion is that if a race gets rained off but there's been qualifying, then you should have half points on the qualifying. Like, that makes sense in my head. And I think that's essentially what the FIA decided as well. And that's why they went and did the little 2-lap parade around behind the safety car. But I think that if they had have just gone, okay, race is rained off, we will give half points to the places in qualifying is a different situation than here's a little parade. We now have a race, in inverted commas. And that's kind of where they made a farce out of it.
Yeah. I mean, the sort of the farcical element of it was that it was pouring with rain all day, and it was clear there wasn't going to be any racing laps really from at the point where they stopped the clock after 3 hours. I think it was saying that after 2 hours or something, saying that we'll try and run a 1 hour race at some point today, and even then it was still after like 3 or 4 hours. It's still, I mean, it was clear that the rain wasn't going to stop, and it was only getting wetter and wetter. And that even at that point, if it stopped raining, the amount of rain that was on the track probably wouldn't be enough to do any actual racing laps. And it was just that there was sort of like no end point. The whole point of there being this 3 hour window in which to actually start the race was so that there was a set end point where they'd be like, okay, after this, that's it, everyone go home. There's not going to be any more uncertainty. But then that was then left in. Like, I understand them, the thought behind it of wanting to actually put a race on, but then it defeats like the whole point of that rule being brought in the first place. Even though it's not a rule that I especially like, I understand why it's there, so that there aren't ridiculous scenarios exactly like this one that the rule was then just ignored for.
So that is the part I didn't really understand. I don't know why they ignored the rule.
Yeah.
I don't understand the rule in the first place, to be fair. It seems silly to me why there needs to be that window, why it can't be delay it or, postpone the race to a different point in the season the next day. I don't understand that. The other side of it, I do kind of see both sides in some way, in that if you look at the F3 sprint race, right, that didn't look like there was going to be any chance of a race happening. And then the track dried up as they were going around. So I think they had the best intentions of what they were trying to do. I don't think they necessarily... I think there were two elements to it. They were kind of going, yeah, sure, if we get these 2 laps in, we can call it a race. But I think the other part was, let's see actually what happens if we take the cars round and whether the track's drying up or not.
Yeah, I understand that, but I am 100% sure that they did it just to have it called a race. I don't think that was the driest point of that 4 hour period. I think there were other points where the rain was less heavy, and I think they picked that point. So like, okay, we just need to get something done now. Maybe the rain eased very slightly at that point. They're like, okay, well, in 15 minutes, let's send them out. But yeah, I wasn't a big fan. It did. I I'm not one of the people who is like, I can't see the point of view of people who say there should have been a race because clearly it wasn't safe enough.
Oh no, that annoys me. I don't understand why people think that. Yes, I know they're athletes, but at the same time they're human beings. Like, you have to accept that, you know, their well-being comes first.
Yeah,
you can't like, there could have been serious injuries if people have been sent out, and that really was winding me up when they were just.
Yeah, we'd already had the problem on Saturday where in Q3 the drivers all went out and were like immediately, no, I'm just aquaplaning here, it's not safe, red flag, and then obviously someone goes and has a big crash, and then, you know, that kind of in at the first like fast corner,
and then Seb comes in and goes, well, I did tell you.
Yeah, exactly. And then all the drivers are like, well, I told you so. So obviously that was an error of judgment, and like, it's a good thing that they didn't repeat that on the Sunday, but I just thought it was a bit cynical sending the cars out for 2 laps, pretty much knowing that there wasn't going to be any racing at the end of it.
But I think the other part of it is that I think because of what happened in qualifying, that they probably were a little bit hesitant and kind of going, well, we've made this error of judgment before, we need to kind of overcompensate.
What do you mean?
Well, I think they maybe would have been a bit more hesitant to let the cars go out, having seen what happened the previous day.
Yeah, but then they did it anyway.
Yes, but they didn't, did they? They didn't let them go out in racing conditions.
Well, no, but they still sent them out. That's my point. I don't understand why. Well, I know I absolutely understand why, because they wanted the money. But
I don't necessarily think it was all about the money. Okay, I'm playing devil's advocate here, right? I honestly think that there could have been a point that they were like, well, we need to make something out of this weekend. Like, yes, I'm biased, George, okay? But yeah. I think if it had been anyone, you know, they have to kind of honour what happened in qualifying in some way. And I think the stupid thing is that the rule is that, you know, 2 laps or whatever it is, that is constituted as a race. Whereas I actually think that the rule should be, if it's not safe, you don't go out, full stop. And then you fall back on the result of qualifying.
Yeah. I think that I mean they're already saying, the FA, that they're gonna review the weekend and look into how they can change the rules to improve it in future and make sure that a fast like this doesn't happen again. I think definitely one of the things you should be taking into account is that it needs to be like a minimum number of racing laps rather than laps, because there was no way for anyone to make up position here, which is a bit of a problem. Then it's not a race, really, is it? The point of a race is you're able to attack people or fall further back. But with this, there wasn't a chance of that. The only chance is if someone spins off behind the safety car, which
happens.
It occasionally happens, but is also very unlikely, and that's not really what would constitute racing anyway.
Yeah.
So,
from your point of view, do you think there should have been no points given for the entire weekend?
I think that probably on balance, I think there should have been no points. At least with what the current rules are, there shouldn't have been points. If they want to amend the rules and say, if we can't do a race at all and we're not going to look to do it at a different date, then award, sprint qualifying, how they award 3, 2, 1 for the first position, second position and third position. Maybe do that instead. But with how the current rules are and that not being defined, you can't just make that up on the day and be like, oh, well, we'll just give out points to first, second and third, because then fourth place will be like, well, what's that all about? Either give no points or give
I think that was exactly what they were trying to do, going, okay, there's a bit of a problem with the rules here. This isn't something that happens often. We need to do the best thing that we can in the circumstances. And I personally would have made the same decision.
Yeah, but I think 12.5 points for a win is still quite a large amount of points for no racing, is my problem.
Yes,
I think 0 points for everyone is more fair than awarding someone still, what is that? It's more than fourth place in a normal race.
Okay.
For doing nothing in actual racing conditions.
But except for the fact that they have earned the places that they're at. You know, they didn't just get given those places in qualifying. Like, okay, this George situation, but this happens every so often. Somebody who ends up in those positions, who is less likely to be in those positions usually, but we don't know what would have happened in that race. But it's unlikely that they would be in that position again, right? So therefore, it seems unfair to me to essentially punish the teams, the bottom teams that have had a good weekend by a fluke or otherwise.
But equally, it's also punishing someone who did less well. I can't think of, but the people who had penalties, like Stroll and Bottas, who loomed over them, who had a grid penalty that then pushed them down. So Bottas, I can't remember exactly where he qualified. I think it was 8th, was pushed back to start 13th, and then had no chance to make it back into the points.
Yes, but at the same time, they've got their half points make those margins smaller.
Yeah, I appreciate that as well, but
I stand by. I think they made the right decision.
Yeah, and
I don't think the rules are right. I don't agree with that, but I think in the circumstances they made the right decision.
Yeah, I still don't think they did, because I think it was, the conditions were so bad that it was almost unsafe to send cars out. There was no chance of them doing racing laps, so it's like, why send the cars out at all? It's then you have to think, are you going to award points here for doing no racing? Like, my main issue isn't with the fact that they awarded points. My issue is with the fact that they sent cars out to do a race distance.
But that is the issue in the rules. Like, I don't know what else they could have done in that circumstance other than cancel the race.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's
but then that doesn't honour what's already happened in that weekend.
But that's not the point. The point is, like, this is my problem, is like, the safety is meant to be getting a bigger and bigger thing as we go on in time, and it has been. We've seen that with the introduction of the halo. I mean, yes, obviously on Saturday there was a red flag issue, which isn't that great, but in general safety has been getting much better. But this is now sending cars out in like almost aquaplaning conditions for the sake of basically the FIA saving themselves the hassle of having to sort out the mess of having a cancelled race.
Yes, but also I think if you go into safety car conditions, it's very different than going out in racing conditions, and therefore the safety levels are increased because the speeds at which they're going aren't going to be, they're not going to be aquaplaning.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but it's still not as safe as keeping the cars in the pit lane where they should have been, because they couldn't go out racing. One of the other things I want to bring up is to do with changing the rules is, I think 2 laps is also much too short to like honour a race distance. What do you think?
I've seen 25% floating around.
Yeah, because I think it's 75. Is it 75%?
Yeah. For
the top end of our points, then above that it's awarded full points. So I think 25% to 75% makes a lot more sense than 2 laps to 75%, because 2 laps is quite subjective as well, because around Spa actually, that's what is that? It's like, I don't know, I can't do the maths. It's 44 laps, so that's some percentage of like 5% of the race or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, it's about 5% of the race. So but if it was around Monaco, that would be like 3% of the race. So I don't know actually, but yeah, I think if it's 25%, that's more fair. But then like, if you run 20 laps or 30 laps in Monaco, however much it is, then or just under that, and not make that any points awarded. I don't know. Maybe it should be a lap count, or maybe it should be a bit of both, whichever is exceeded first. If there's 20 laps or 25%, something like that.
I agree with you that I think 2 laps. I can't, in no circumstances, 2 laps a race.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if we bring it back to the sprint race, where that is a 25% race, I think, isn't it? And that awards 3, 2, and 1 points, and then there has to be some sort of connection between the two. Like maybe if it's under 25%, then 3, 2, and 1 for the first 2, and then no points for anyone else. And if it's over that, between 25 and 75%, then award the half points. And if it's over 75%, then award the 4 points.
I think there just has to be something done in terms of, like, I'm sorry, I keep going back to this, but I think that there has to just be something to do with qualifying, because it's there for a reason. Otherwise,
yeah,
you just
but the reason the reason is to set the grid for the race.
Yes, I appreciate that. However, if they didn't do qualifying, they could just do something along the lines of like reverse championship order or something. And there's a reason that every single week it resets, right? And those people earn those places, and that is a huge part of the race, isn't it? So it's like you can completely change the race circumstances by where you've qualified.
Yeah, so
therefore they've done a part of the job already. That's what I'm saying. That I think that you can't ignore the fact that part of the job has been done.
Yeah, but there's a reason why we don't award points for qualifying.
But people argue that you should.
Yeah, some people do. I would still argue. No, I mean maybe if sprint qualifying is a thing and you award 3, 2, and 1, maybe award 3, 2, and 1 for normal qualifying on a normal weekend. But I can see some argument for that. But then again, I wouldn't be awarding half race points for that. I would be awarding 3, 2, and 1, like far lower than what they've actually been getting.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's no doubt that they need to look at the rules, which by the sounds of things is what's happening, and I stand by that. I think in the circumstances, given that they couldn't change a rule on the spot, although they tried to, it was very strange. I think they did the best they could.
Yeah, I think that definitely it was challenging circumstances. If I was the race director, I wouldn't have sent those cars out on safety grounds. I would have gone by the current rules that have been set, even if I don't like them, that if the race can't be started in a 3-hour period, then the race is over. I wouldn't have been stopping the clock.
That I didn't understand.
Yeah, I wouldn't be stopping the clock and letting all this uncertainty, because then that's just, that exactly that. It's uncertainty, and no one's going to know what's going to happen then. If I think I can, well, I wouldn't anyway. But if there was like, the rain has stopped for a minute, let's send the cars out, do 2 laps, and make that a race. Kind of fair enough, because it's like you've seen an opportunity in the weather easing, but it didn't really feel like that happened, and that happened well outside the 3-hour window anyway when they did send them out.
But the rain did ease up though.
Yeah, but I think I can't remember. Someone on the team radio was saying that it wasn't actually that much better. I think it was Vettel actually. I mean, we're saying all this. What's actually happened is we didn't actually see the race at all. We were quite fortunate, I guess, to not be watching this one live. We were busy for the weekend. So I don't know exactly what everyone was saying, and
I was following it live.
Yeah,
on Twitter, but
yeah, but so we don't know exactly what everyone was saying. I mean, we've watched the highlights, if you can call it that. It was more like the low points, really. But yeah. So I don't know everyone's team radio for this, but I'm pretty sure it was Vettel who was saying that he didn't think that if there had been less wet points during the afternoon, and he felt that they were just sending them out for the sake of setting. I think Vettel, Hamilton, and Alonso have all come out and sort of been like they don't think that points should have been awarded for this race.
Well, in fairness, Alonso was in a position where he would have gained from that.
Yeah. Well, not gained, but not lost, because he's the first big loser.
I know, he's 11th.
Because when you're 11th, then you're like, well, I would have been able to probably get forwards here. I've not had that chance, and I've now basically been punished for that.
But he's only been punished by half a point, essentially.
Yeah, but Vettel was like he was like 5th, I think, wasn't he? And
But what's Vettel fighting for? Like, this is the...
Yeah, but that's the point.
No.
He's still fighting for his team doing well in the championship.
No, I appreciate that, but I think you have to look at it from lots of different people's points of view, and I think that's what the FIA were doing, and I think they felt that it was the most fair thing to do in the circumstances.
Yeah, I still massively disagree. I don't think it's right. The prestigiousness of a Grand Prix is for a reason. That's why they weren't awarding more points for a sprint race than just 3 for a win. That's why they weren't doing the sort of F2 and F3 style of 15 points for a win for that, because they wanted to keep the Grand Prix prestigious. And now we've had this situation where, exactly, there hasn't been a Grand Prix. There's been no racing, but half points have still been awarded, which just doesn't sit right with me. So I think that's enough of talking about the horrid stuff to do with the rain, and we'll move on to talking about some of our winners from this week. We'll try and wrap it up as quick as possible because obviously there's not that much to talk around about, but I think without doubt the biggest winner has to be Mr. George Russell.
I'm really upset with you. I can't believe you took it from me. I wanted to announce it.
Well, you can start off the conversation then.
He did good.
He did good. I mean, that pretty much sums it up perfectly. I don't think actually it does. I think good's not really a strong enough word. His performance in qualifying was something completely out of the top tier.
I'm actually really angry with Max that he just swiped it from him at the last minute.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember the gaps exactly, but he was
3/10.
Well, I remember it was 3/10 to Max, but it was like
3/10.
It was very fractional to Lewis, wasn't it? It was like half a tenth, I think, to Lewis, but then he was quite a lot of head.
Well, it was 3/10, 3/10.
No, I think it was quite close between those two. I seem to remember.
Either way.
But I think then there was
Max.
quite a big gap to anyone else. But yeah, it was that lap was absolutely godly. I mean, my goodness, that was really something. And I mean, 100% he's deserving of that Mercedes seat now. I'm pretty sure that it's already. They've not obviously Mercedes haven't confirmed it yet.
You could just tell from the press conference.
But
though,
from what they were saying, and from the fact that it's been decided, but they're still waiting. It sounds like they're trying to find Bottas a seat so that he can announce that he's moving somewhere else, sort of at the same time. So yeah, I mean,
alternatively,
they're trying to find.
they're keeping Bottas and they're trying to find George a seat.
Oh, I don't think that's quite the case.
I think anybody would take him.
Yeah, definitely.
Except for those really good teams that have got. Oh wait, yeah, no, there's not really any good teams left.
Yeah. Yeah. So in terms
George
of
at Ferrari next year.
Yeah. Wow. No, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure.
Go out Leclerc.
I'm pretty sure they're locked in. Yeah. So in terms of other winners, I mean, obviously he's the clear main contender, but probably Verstappen as well. I mean, you have to say 'cause he's won the race, if you can call it that.
Well, if nothing else, he's closed up the gap again.
Yeah, and he's closed up the gap a little bit.
In fairness to him, I think he deserved a bit of a win after the.
Yeah, it'd been a few rubbish rounds from him and a couple of real stinkers.
And it wasn't 100% his fault, really, those ones. So it's nice for him to get a bit of something in his favour.
A little bit of momentum back, but I think the real momentum will come this coming weekend at Zandvoort. So yeah, he definitely won. Ricciardo probably a bit of a winner.
He did good qualifying.
Yeah, in fourth. Again, he didn't have the McLaren in the hands of Norris. Looked like he had a superb pace, almost certainly pole position pace.
Definitely had some pace when he
decided
to drive into the wall.
Yeah, we'll come on to that. Other than that, I mean, Vettel qualified fifth. Oh no, did he qualify fifth? He certainly finished fifth. I don't know if Perez was in between. I think, I'm pretty sure he qualified fifth as well. And was obviously being a super nice guy when he stopped to make sure Lando was okay after his shunt in quali.
And was a super nice guy when he was playing football with Mick.
Yes, then
he goes into the winners category.
That
just for
was
that.
very cute. Yeah, you can definitely fit in here. And maybe Latifi as well. Yeah, it's
double points for Williams.
Yeah, qualified 12th, which, I mean, given that George is still 10 places behind his teammate, but that is in a Williams. That's still a good performance. And then with penalties and Perez finishing after 2 laps behind the safety car, he was ninth and got another point.
The Williams car is starting to come together. After 3
I
years.
mean, it's and then with the regulations changing, maybe they're the only ones that are developing it. But I think it just has been a couple of fluky races. Like I had thought, to be honest, the Williams usually underperformed in the rain. I mean, you could look at actually an Imola race, George a pretty good pace there. But I'm thinking historically, like the last couple of years, I seem to remember that actually when it rained and you thought it might be crazy, the Williams seemed to be even more off the pace than it usually was. But maybe this year they've got that car that works when it's actually very wet conditions.
When everyone else is going slowly, it just goes a little bit less.
A little bit less slowly than usual.
That's probably all we can put in the winners.
Yeah,
It's not a lot.
I think so. So, yeah, without further ado, we'll move on to our losers. I think to start off, it has to be Perez. I mean, he didn't even qualify particularly well. I think he was in 7th, if I remember correctly. And then obviously on the formation lap, had a bit of a whoopsie into the wall. And yeah, that was him out of the race, except no, he wasn't. He was back in because his car was recovered to the pit lane on a tow truck, and then his mechanics repaired it. It took like an hour and 20 minutes, and he was allowed to restart, but from the pit lane, so from the very back of the grid.
But I think it's still got to be a loser because he threw away points basically.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, he's definitely a loser. I'm not saying it's just another weird rule that I think that he shouldn't have been allowed. I think he was made an exception basically, maybe because the FIA knew there was not going to be any actual racing and he wouldn't be making up further positions, because you're not allowed assistance. I mean, this was a while ago, but when Senna and Prost famously had their clash when they're both at McLaren to decide the title, and Senna got a push start and cut the chicane and was then disqualified from that race and not allowed to and then didn't win the championship. And I think remembering when Hamilton's first year as well in 2000, I think in 2007 in Europe, he did get assistance. He did get like a push out of the gravel and was allowed to continue. He may have got a penalty for that. I cannot remember. That was in 2007. That's quite a while ago.
But you remember Senna and Prost.
But yeah, obviously, a very famous moment. So of course I know that one, although not from it being live. So yeah, Perez, absolute nightmare for him. But plus side from the weekend, he's got the gig at Red Bull again next year. So he celebrated that in style by smashing his car up on the formation lap.
For me, I didn't really think that he wasn't going to get it anyway.
Yeah,
I know people were talking about it, but I really didn't think. I know some people were saying Gasly, and some people were saying Russell taking a seat, and I'm looking at both of them going, no, that's not going to happen. That's just not going to be a good pairing, and Red Bull aren't going to make that mistake. Yeah,
I mean, they have to always be a little bit in your mind that's like, well, Red Bull is so cutthroat, they could just chop him out because he's not been there. He's been doing a decent job, but I mean, he's not been great. He's always been like a fair bit off Verstappen in qualifying. Yes, he's won that one race, but other than that, it's not been really that great, really that stellar. But
it's not been Albon level though, has it?
No, it's not been that bad. It's only not been, like Gasly or Albon really level of sort of underperforming that car. Or maybe just like normal performing it, and it's Verstappen who's really, really overperforming it. But we don't know.
I mean, I think that's probably a likely situation.
Yeah. But yeah, good for him for sticking around.
But yeah, and I guess someone else is Lando.
Yeah, of course. I mean, just given the pace that he had in qualifying, top of Q1, top of Q2, and then absolutely smacks it at the top of Radion. At the beginning of Q3 and doesn't set a time. And then gets a penalty because his car has to be fixed. Then gets the penalty and therefore is well out of the points. So, yeah. When he could have potentially had 12.5 points. Yeah, it could have been a win, but instead it's no points. But having said that, it feels like with Russell it feels bad because it's not a proper podium. Like his first podium isn't he's not properly earned it. Yes, he's earned it through qualifying, but he's not been able to go out there and race for it. So which is why it's for me it's better that it's not he didn't win or that Lando didn't win and that their first race win has this cloud. Excuse the pun. Has this cloud hanging over it. It's the same with Lando's first couple of podiums. That there was sort of controversy and it wasn't there. Yeah, but I think the thing is, as George said, it doesn't matter how it comes. Yeah. And I know that it's going to be a bit bittersweet, but there's been plenty of times where he's got unlucky. Yeah. And I think, as you say in every single podcast, that's racing. Yeah. It's a part of racing, is that you get unlucky and you have the times when you are lucky, and this happened to be a time where he finally got lucky. And
got that podium, and that was that.
Yeah, I think the thing with George as well is that there was there's basically, I mean, like 0% chance him getting a podium with Williams with this current Williams car in any other scenario other than this exact one.
Hey, who knows? He could do an insane qualifying lap again this weekend, and then we'll get to see, won't we?
Yeah, but it would need to be like the exact same really heavy conditions with the car that's just set up to work in those exact conditions.
Who knows?
And then the race just being completely cancelled other than like running behind the safety car. It would need to be that exact same thing again.
No, what I'm saying is he could do the same in qualifying, and then we have a regular race, and then he proves you wrong, and he wins.
Yeah, but I just don't see it happening because of strategy and the fact that even if he's there in like second place, when he has to pit, the car that's behind him is going to be able to do laps that are, faster than he can do in a Williams, and would then jump him in the pit stops. Even if it's around Monaco. Stop
being so negative. You got a trophy. You haven't got one, have you?
No, I'm very impressed that he's got his trophy, and I am happy for him. But I thought we meant to be talking about losers here anyway.
I'm sorry, but it's all about George.
It's just all about George.
Oh, I'm sorry, but when the F1 Twitter changes their header, like their cover photo, to be him on the podium with his trophy, I think it can be all about George today.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's the F1 Twitter's photo is George now, which
Yeah.
But basically, there are lots of losers. Everyone's basically lost this weekend.
Yeah, so pretty much. Yeah, well, the fans obviously have lost big time, those at the circuit, and I mean, like, for us, everyone at home as well, having to sit through like 3 hours of pretty much nothing happening to get, what was it, like 3 or 4 minutes of running behind the safety car. It's not exactly paid off for anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we managed to see our first fastest lap for Nikita Mazepin.
Oh, I forgot him in the winners.
It was like 3 minutes and 18 seconds or something like that. Must be this, like, I don't know actually, because like thinking back in the day when they're going around like the Nürburgring, Nordschleife, there must have been fastest laps that were slower than that. But in
the
this
slowest fastest lap.
Yeah, in this day and age, like in terms of like, yeah, the actual speed that I would love to see how fast that fastest lap was. It must be so slow.
It would be really fun if you got the point for fastest lap at any point, and then Haas finally get a point. Well, half a point.
And half a point, and it's for going around, trundling around at like 70 miles an hour.
Anyway.
Yeah, I think that's wrapped up pretty nicely. I mean, I don't need to say that much else. It was just, not a good weekend for Formula One.
No, I think the only thing we should talk about is whether or not the fans can get their money back. But I don't think I want to touch on it.
Yeah, I think they should. I think they should work out a way, because obviously, it's a bit tricky because the circuit is the circuit that sells the tickets. But I think that for a case like this, there should be some sort of compromise between the circuit and the governing body, where they or F1 itself, where they go into a pot of money and refund the fans at least some of the amount of their ticket. Because
I think Lewis Hamilton can probably afford to.
Yeah, well, people are saying that, but it's not his job, is it? And, I mean, he probably couldn't actually afford to. I don't know how many people were there, but certainly tens, if not hundreds of thousands, right? So that's quite a lot of people to refund.
Well,
he could probably afford it, actually. That's like, if it's tickets, I don't know, like a few hundred quid or something like that. Then
either way.
Yeah, and either way, he's not going to be doing it, but hopefully Formula One will be.
They said, didn't they, that they were looking at
Yes,
options.
they've said that they're at least looking at it, and hopefully that will end in a result for some of the guys and girls who went along to watch the race. So they can be at least compensated for having to sit out in the rain and the mud and the wind for
See, I don't know. I saw some pictures. They look like they're having a great time.
Well, some of them were. Yeah. Anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
so, I'm wearing orange to support next week's race being in the Netherlands. I'm sure there'll be plenty of other people wearing orange there cheering on Max Verstappen, and hopefully not booing Lewis Hamilton too much, although I'm sure I will be disappointed.
Hey, I think it's just how it is.
Yeah.
I think it's just part of sport, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is, but
it doesn't.
It's not. It shouldn't be an F1. It's the sort of thing you get in football, but it's not something. sort of thing you should get in a sport like F1. I don't think.
I
It's
think
not
that
really have that sort of partisan spirit there, but
I think the Dutch fans are very much of the opinion, well, you pushed him off into the wall, therefore boo. Like, I think, you know.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, you can, as always, like, subscribe, and follow us on Instagram, Twitter. We're at the F1 Couple, and all that good stuff. But until our next podcast, we'll see you later.